Back to basics this week. It's a simple piece of scatter terrain with some tips on how to make a good solid base for your larger terrain pieces. Take some dollar store foam board and draw out sort of a rounded triangle shape as you see here. Trace the shape onto chipboard, cut out around it, apply glue stick to both surfaces and give it about 30 seconds to become tacky. I found that this helps ensure an instant strong bond. Then use scissors to trim off the excess chipboard so it's perfectly flush with the foam board. Extend your crafting knife out pretty far and chamfer the edge at a shallow angle. In other words, you don't want the knife perpendicular and you don't want it totally parallel, you want it slightly above parallel like this. Make sure the blade is fresh and that you are drawing across the material as if using a saw, and you'll find that it shaves off very nicely. Then get some sandpaper. This is 150 grit, but 220 would be fine also, and just smooth out those tapers. And now we have a really nice looking base. Professional wargame terrain makers like to use a thin MDF board, which they then chamfer with a knife or a sander, but this method requires no power tools and no MDF board. By the way, glue stick doesn't warp nearly as bad as white PVA glue, and that's why I use it. Now take two pieces of some dollar store foam board, about 8 inches square, peel the paper off one side of each and glue stick them together. Now measure your base to see how much area you have. In this case I had about 4 inches in each direction, so that's what I went with. And I drew on the shape of a wall segment on my double thick foam piece and cut it out. I figured that 4 inches high would be a good height 4 terrain for my Kings of War games. Then I cut the other wall, making sure that it would match up with the first one. Apply a texture to the walls however you like. We've discussed techniques many times before. And then hot glue them to the base and to each other. I picked out a couple spots on the base and applied a brick texture to them. Then brush on white PVA glue, ignoring the brick spots. And flock with pebbles and sand. Base the whole piece in black. Sponge on dark gray to the walls and the ground spots. While that's drying, we apply a solid base coat of burnt umber for all of the flocked area. And then while that's drying, we can sponge on a light gray to all the stone. Once everything is bone dry, I used Craftsmart suede and dry brushed the sand with it. Now apply our white glue water mixture to the sanded area. I know in the past I've mentioned like 2/3 PVA, 1/3 water, but honestly anything close to 50-50 will work. It's hard to mess up. Just make sure the mixture flows slightly thicker than plain water. This is important because the flock can absorb the mixture and you get a nice blanket of flock instead of a thin layer. After it dries completely, brush off the excess. And if you want to, apply another coat of mixture to seal it all in. Finally, this is a bag of assorted moss that I got from the crafting store. I'm just going to hot glue a couple pieces in place. I am Wylock, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.